Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Learn Academic English. On this channel, you can find lessons for intermediate and advanced level English learners, especially for people who want to level up their English for school and work. In today's lesson, I'm going to teach you a strange pronunciation pattern that happens in North American English. It's when we have the letters N and T together and the T gets dropped. Before I show these words to you, I'd like to remind you to please give this video a like, leave a comment below, and subscribe if you'd like more lessons like this one. And note that I offer online live classes. If you're interested in taking my class, check the description box below for more information. And as always, I will leave a question below that you can use to practice. So when we talk about this pronunciation pattern, I want to be clear about one thing. This happens when people are speaking at a normal pace. If someone pronounces these words by themselves, they probably will not drop the T. But when we're speaking in a normal way, in conversation, most people will drop the T in these words. Now, some people might pronounce the T sometimes and drop it other times. But one thing that's interesting is that if you ask a native speaker how to pronounce these words, they will probably say these words with the T. That's because when they say the word by itself, they know that there's a T there. But when we're speaking normally, we do a lot of things where we link sounds together and we drop sounds that are not necessary. And so in normal conversation, most native speakers will drop these T's and they don't even realize that they are doing it. Okay, so let's take a look at the first ones. International. International. Any word that has inner in it, like intersection, the T is usually dropped when we're speaking in conversation.
International waters
has taken place on the backs of an international system in which...
Okay, the next one is enter. So a lot of times people say enter, but often when we're speaking at a normal pace, we say enter. No T at all.
We enter a world that is just cluttered with spam.
Okay, next we have Sacramento. There are many cities that have NT, and in that case, the T is usually dropped. Now, this is the city where I live, so I deal with this a lot because a lot of my students will say, Professor, why do people say Sacramento? There's a T there. And then I have to explain that that's because we often drop the T.
Sacramento, California.
Okay, winter. Now, a lot of people say winter, but when we're speaking quickly, it often happens that we'll say winter. The winters here are really cold. Okay, next, center and fantasy. Fantasy.
Like fantasy.
Okay, the next one's painter. So a lot of words that have N-T-E-R are going to have this T dropped when we're speaking at a normal pace.
House painter. He used to be a house painter.
Splinter. Oh, I just got a splinter in my finger. Okay, a splinter is a tiny piece of wood that gets stuck in your finger. Counter. Okay, what are you doing? Oh, I'm wiping the kitchen counter. Wanted. Okay, so here, what do we have? We have the verb want, but then when we add the ED, we have to add another syllable. And when that happens, we often drop the T. Wanted.
This is what I wanted.
This is what I wanted.
Or painted. He painted this picture a long time ago. Okay. The next I have here the city Toronto. Toronto.
You're in Toronto.
Okay, finally, I want to show you that this does not work every time you see a word that has N and T. Why is that? Because there's actually a rule. The rule is that when the N and T comes when the syllable before is stressed, then we can drop the T in fast speech. Okay, so look at the word Toronto or Toronto. Which syllable has stress? Toronto. The second syllable, Toronto. So when we're speaking quickly, because this syllable is stressed, the T can be dropped. Okay, the next part of the rule is what comes after the T. It needs to be a vowel sound or the sound So for that reason, we can say Toronto. Now look at this word, entry. Where's the stress? The stress is on the syllable before, entry. But what comes after the T? It's not a vowel and it's not the sound. It's r, right? It's the consonant R. For that reason, we cannot say enry. We have to say entry. So in this word, the T is pronounced as a T. Okay, let's look at the next word. Think about where the stress is. Integrity. So the stress is on the second syllable, integrity. Integrity. Then look at the N and T. Where do those letters come? They come before the stressed syllable, integrity. For that reason, we cannot drop the T here, okay? If the stress were on the first syllable, then we could drop the T. But because the stress comes after the T, we cannot drop the T. So let's go back here for a second and check these words. How about in the word enter? In the word enter or enter, the stress comes before the N and T, and what comes after? The sound. Okay? How about the word fantasy? In the word fantasy, the stress is on the syllable before the N and T, and what comes after the T? The sound. It's a vowel sound. So we can drop the T. Okay, so now that you know what happens, I think it's important to talk about how this affects you. Should you use this pronunciation? It's completely up to you. I think the important thing is to not sit there and think about the words when you're speaking and say, oh, is there an N and a T? Now, where is the stress? And what comes after the T? That's too much work and it's completely unnecessary. But when you learn a word like fantasy or international, you probably want to know that a lot of people are going to say those words with the T dropped. Or if you hear a word like center, you might want to notice that some people are going to say center, and don't be thrown off by that. So the point here is that native speakers will use a lot of dropped T's in words like these. There are more words, and I'll leave more examples in the description box below. You can choose to pronounce it with the T dropped or with a clear T. It doesn't matter. It's totally up to you. When you learn a word like fantasy, you probably want to know that the T will often be dropped by native speakers. But don't worry about it when you're speaking. This is not important. What's more important is that your pronunciation is clear and understandable. If you have any questions or if you have any topics that you would like me to cover in future lessons, please let me know in the comments below, and I hope to see you back here again soon. All the best and take care.